Good morning, everybody. Welcome to all you fabulous followers of Technique Tuesday. It's great to have you all with me this morning. I hope you're all okay. I hope you are getting some decent weather, managing to stay safe, keeping inspired, all of those things that we wish for each other on this Tuesday morning. It's pretty cold and damp down here on the south of the UK in Dorset, and my fingers are requiring a little bit of warming up this morning, which they're definitely going to need because I'm going to be doing some fine detailed work. But for those of you who follow Technique Tuesday on a regular basis, you will know that one of the most important things that I have to do first thing in the morning is to say good morning to all of you lovely people who have taken the time and trouble to log in and follow this demonstration along live. So let's give some of you a shout out. Now we have a new winner of the first post of the day, and she knows it, the lovely Jo. Good morning, Jo. Heather, good morning. Who else have we got in the room? We have got Barbara, Jeanette, Kathy, Martina. You got pipped to it, Martina, this morning. Thea, Jane is saying, morning from the cloudy Isle of Man. Lovely to have you here. Sup, Mr. Templeman, I will see you tomorrow. Anne, good morning. She's saying that she's not able to watch live as she's on the road again. That's fine. That's what Catch Up is all about, where you can watch it either via Facebook, YouTube, or the Technique Tuesday blog. We'll talk more about that later. Anne B, good morning. Joe is saying, looking forward to Technique Tuesday on this cold and grey morning. It is a bit chilly, isn't it? Lovely D, one of our admins, is in the room as well this morning, who probably should be working, but she's here with us instead. Thank you very much. Jilly, good morning. Linda D, good morning. Who else have we got? Joy is saying pretty grey and overcast in the Cotswolds this morning. Yes. And what else have we? Oh, we've got lots of people in this morning. Goodness me. Who have I missed out? Rabina, good morning. Hilary P, Sandy, Maureen, Trudy, Mick, good morning, everybody. Val, found at last, which I'm assuming she means the broadcast and not anything else. Tracy, Patricia. Yes, Patricia is saying needs to warm up a little in grey, miserable Suffolk. Ali D is in the room, Jean, Rosemary and Jane as well. No matter, Christine, good morning. No matter where you are watching, whether you are, like I said, watching live via Facebook this morning, or whether you're watching Catch Up, and that could be via Facebook, that could be via YouTube, or that could be via the Technique Tuesday blog. Now don't forget the Technique Tuesday blog, that is over on the Learning to Paint page, so that's www.learningtopaint.co.uk. Go to the free resources in the menu and you will find the Technique Tuesday blog. Why is that important? It's important because last week we started a brand spanking new project, all inspired by my Plan B project. And I'm going to do a very quick recap this morning, and then I'm going to talk about a little bit of pen work that I'm going to do on it. Now, if you want to know more about why I've done this in a particular way, and you want those really fantastically easy to shop links for the pens that I will be using this morning, then you need to make sure that you pop over to that Technique Tuesday blog, because I've put them as clickable links. You don't have to search or anything. You can just go bang, there they are. But please be aware that I am part of an affiliate scheme, which means that I get a few pennies. If you purchase anything through those links, it just means that I get a few pennies that go towards being able to deliver broadcasts such as this one. Now, there's people that I have not had the chance to say hello to. Good morning, Amanda. Oh, Anne, poor Anne has got COVID, but she said on the plus side, it means she can watch live. Well, I hope, Anne, that we bring a little bit of respite to those bugs. And Shani is in the room as well. Good morning. Right, shall we take you to the overhead camera so that you can see where we got to with this project, and I will do a little bit of a recap and a rundown of those things so you can see exactly what we got up to. Morning Lynn, morning Pen. So this is where we started last week. This is the Agave watercolor paper. The link for this pad is in last week's blog, so you can go and find that link really easily. And I was using it because it's superable white. It's superable. That's not a word, is it? It's super white. And it means that if I do turn my design into a greetings card or something similar, then it's going to be much, much easier to photograph. This is a block, so it's glued almost all the way around on 4 sides, and that means I don't have to stretch it or do anything to it. Now, here's our bits of research that we did. We were talking about the idea of creating an illustration around the theme of herbs. I'm not entirely sure where this is going. I'm not entirely sure whether this is going to become a series or whether this is just a one-off. Morning, Fiona. What I have got is a photograph of some, morning Sally, of the oregano that currently is in my garden. And we were looking at text a lot this week. Did you pop over to the blog? Did you see the font that I was using for this? I hope you did. And it was also part of a little sketchbook idea that I had. But if you want to catch up on any of that, you're going to need to pop back over to the blog and watch last week's broadcast. So I was playing about with sizes of font and sizes of picture and all of those types of things. And then what we got to eventually was me starting to construct it onto tracing paper. So we used a little banner. We talked about how we created that kind of banner shape. I was talking about, obviously, because this is part of my Plan B project. And if you want to know more about Plan B, then you either need to pop over to Instagram or to my Alison C. Board Artist webpage. So we've got the B in there, we've got the lettering. We talked at length, didn't we, about hand lettering and how it might be easier to trace it rather than necessarily try to construct it freeform. And then I was trying to put the oregano shapes and leaves back into this to be able to transfer it onto the watercolor paper. And we talked an awful lot, didn't we, about using tracing paper and how sometimes it's better to construct a design onto tracing paper, because then you haven't got this sort of constant erasing and redrawing and scuffing up the surface of what potentially or is, with the agave, a very soft watercolor paper. So I was going to speed this on. When I was doing my prep yesterday, I thought, oh, right, I'll speed it all on and I'll get it kind of all inked up and all the rest of it. And I thought, actually, you're going to miss out on a whole load of thought process. And one of the things I try to do on Technique Tuesday is to take you through that thought process to help you to understand why I do the things that I do, why I do them in the order that I do them, all of that kind of stuff. So I've slowed it right down. Now, that does mean that today's broadcast is going to be possibly a little bit shorter than normal, but I'm hoping that rather than just leapfrog my way through the project and you have to understand why I've made those decisions, I've slowed it down a little bit. So where have I got to with this? I drew it out onto my tracing paper. I spent a long time trying to get the composition of this oregano where I wanted it to be. I didn't necessarily want it to fill a rectangle per se. I wanted it to be a little more asymmetrical than that. So I played about, and I did a lot of erasing on this. I did an awful lot of erasing. I was drawing and redrawing and making sure that the leaves were all facing the way that I wanted. So it kind of backed this script and the bee that we had. Then when I was fairly happy, I mean, I can't honestly say that I'm always happy with it, but when I was fairly happy with it, I thought, right, what I'll do is I'll transfer it. Now, obviously, if you're using tracing paper, there are 2 ways that you could transfer it. You could do it the traditional way. Morning, Michelle. And so the traditional way would be draw it out that side, go back over it in pencil, lay it down, and then redraw it again. Okay, but that is a little bit time consuming, I have to say. So I have used the trace down method. Now, if you follow my work a lot, you will know that I'm a massive fan of trace down. I think it's a brilliant tool for you being able to shortcut your way through. Good morning, lovely Anita. And so I've done the majority of it. I'm just going to do the last few bits. So there it is. I've done the majority of it, but I've left a little bit of it so that you can see me rattle through it. Now I'm using a non-stop pencil for this. It's a mechanical style of pencil, so it's got a very fine point. But as I was saying last week, one of the things I'm trying really hard to do this year is to think about the impact that the materials that I use and a bit of an ethos around the materials that I use has on my work. Now, whilst these are brilliant because they are disposable, they are plastic. So I'm trying very hard to use up materials that are sort of sitting in my box and replace them with different types of materials that are more sustainable. And I understand that that's not for everybody. I'm not trying to preach, and I'm certainly not getting on my soapbox on it, but it's to help you understand where I am with my work and the kind of decisions that I'm making moving forward. Good morning, Chris. So I'm using this fine mechanical pencil so that I get a lovely fine line. I'm pressing quite hard because I've got to go through a piece of tracing paper and the trace down. And I know a lot of you who know my work well will be saying, well, that's brilliant, Ali, but normally you say to us to do the transfer with a biro. So I would normally say to you, right, when you do your transfer, use a biro so that you can see where you've been, so that it presses a little bit harder. But I realised that I hadn't actually taken a copy of this, and rather than it being covered in biro, I still want it to look like it's in pencil form. So if I, for some reason, if this doesn't work, and I want to put this into the vault of line drawings that I have, then I can still copy it, scan it, and I'll get a nice soft finish to that, rather than some turquoise biro or, a line that I don't particularly like the quality of. So let's just pull up that trace down, make sure that it's gone through. It is a little bit faint, but I'm not worried about that. Makes it harder for you guys to see, but don't worry, I will zoom in just a second. But what it does mean is that I haven't made too much of an impression on this very soft surfaced paper. So the next thing I'm going to do, if I could get my very cold fingers to work, is to separate the piece of tracing paper and carefully take the tape away from the top of this. I'm being much more careful than I would do ordinarily on a piece of Saunders Waterford because, like I said, this is incredibly soft surfaced. All I do with these is I tend to fold those little tabs of tape over, and then, like I said, I've got a big folder, we must go through it sometime, where I keep all of my line drawings, all of my compositions, all of those sorts of things, which is a little bit of a teaching aid for me, but it's also, if I am struggling a bit for inspiration, I tend to go back through my line drawings, see what past projects I've done, and reinvigorate them or present them in a different way, and it's a much nicer place to start than necessarily having to think everything up from scratch all the time. So let's carefully take our piece of trace down away. Now there are a few little scuff marks on the surface. You might not be able to see them as clearly as I can, but I've got a very old and disgusting putty rubber here, which is also really cold because I didn't have the heating on in the studio overnight because I've been working away from the studio this week. So I even need to warm up my putty eraser. Good morning, Jan. And so I'm going to go back over and I'm just going to tidy some of those scuff marks up. Now, what's lovely Alice saying? Alice is saying, my daughter Sophie is following you on Instagram. She has an allotment and loves what you do. Oh, Alice, how lovely. Thank you ever so much for telling me that. That's really kind. And I do hope Sophie is enjoying those things that I write about on Instagram. And Michelle is saying, I feel like a line drawing photo organisation coming on. If I remember next week, or if somebody reminds me, I'll pull that folder of line drawings. Well, it's more than one folder, as you can imagine. I'll pull that out of the archive and I'll take you through it as a little bit of a sideshow to Technique Tuesday. So I'm taking my putty eraser, I am just sort of wiping it across the surface so that I get rid of some of those scuff marks. And also I tend to use it in a tapping motion so that I can pull any areas of dark graphite away. Now let's take the... Oh, Tracy's asking me a question. Which putty rubber is the best? Tracy, that's a brilliant question. This one is a Lyra Kneadable Eraser. I do tend to prefer the grey ones. This isn't grey because it's filthy. I mean, it is filthy, but it is grey anyway. I tend to prefer these ones. They're a little bit softer than the white ones. And the thing I like about it is when it gets covered in graphite, what you do is you kind of pull it apart, a bit like sort of silly putty or blue tack or similar. And you can re-knead it back into shape, and it kind of incorporates all of the graphite. And there you can see it's that little bit cleaner than it was before. Now, lots of people are going to say, well, why would I buy a putty eraser? Why can't I just use blue tack? It is a similar consistency to blue tack, but the problem with blue tack is that it has quite a lot of oil in it. You'll know that if you leave a piece of blue tack on a piece of paper for a long period of time, the oil from that blue tack comes through the paper, and we certainly don't want to transfer any of that onto our drawing, particularly if we are working in watercolors, because of course that's going to repel our watercolor, isn't it? So whilst there are some kind of art hacks on occasion, there's another idea for a series, art hacks, it's not going to work in this case. So the Faber-Castell do a grey one, Lyra do one. There's many on the market. They are my particular weapons of choice. I like the Lyra one because it comes in a box. Why do I like the fact it comes in a box? Is it because I like it because it keeps it clean? No, it's because it stops my dog getting to it, because my dog likes to use putty erasers like chewing gum. So I have to keep it safe. Trudy is saying, that's a brilliantly soft one. Shall I look out for that make, or could there be a link on your blog? Trudy, message me, remind me. I will go and add the link to it on the blog after I've done this broadcast. All right, if you're watching this on catch up, the link will hopefully already be there, but I'll pop it over on the blog for you to do. Morning Ruth, morning Mick. Now Mick, our fabulous resident poet, what has Mick written this morning? Let your artwork be your garden. When you start, you sow the seeds. By practice, you can grow flowers, although sometimes you may see weeds. Oh, Mick, that sums up my garden in an absolute nutshell. Okay, so let us zoom in to this so that you can see this in a little bit more detail. I don't want to zoom in too far because I don't want it to go out of focus, but we've certainly got a slightly better viewpoint of it. Now, I could go back over that in pencil again if I wanted to be absolutely sure of where my pencil lines are. Shani is saying that her dog uses putty eraser as chewing gum as well. Aren't they terrible? Now, I could go back over this in pencil. I could make the lines much bolder, but I don't actually need to do that because I'm going to ink this in. This is a technique that I use in illustration all the time, where I go back over, I ink my lines in, and then I start with my paint after that. But it isn't necessarily the inking that you might think it is. And I've got some pens here to share with you. The links for these are definitely on the blog already. You can go back over and find those. So these are made by Unipin, okay? This is the Mitsubishi Pen Company. I do love these pens. There's lots of different pens on the market. Don't think that this is the only one. The colours that we're talking about today are particular to this range, but there are other brands out there that have greys and blacks and all sorts of other things too. So these are the Unipin ones, like I say. So we have got, what's this one called? Light grey. I'll show you them on the paper in a second. We have got dark grey, and we've got my black one absolutely covered in paint, so you can see I use it a lot. And in terms of size, today I've gone for 0.5 in the light grey, 0.5 in the dark grey, and 0.4 in the black. Actually, 0.4 is just a cough finer than these, and so that is why I particularly prefer the 0.4. But test them out, see which one you particularly like. Now, why is it important to have these in different colours? I'm going to go just to, let's just go to the bottom of my piece of paper. I'm going to use down here as a little bit of a test run. I could go over the entirety of my project in black. It would be fine. That wouldn't be a problem at all. If black is all you have when you do a project similar to this, use that. All I'm suggesting is that you have the opportunity to be a little bit more subtle with it. So if there was something that you really wanted to stand out, then you could do it in the black, couldn't you? If you wanted something to have an outline, but you were afraid that the black would be a little bit strong, then the dark grey might be better. And if there was something that you wanted the line to remain so that you could see it, but you didn't want to dominate it, so for example, the wings on my bee, then you might want to go for a light grey. And that way you've got a nice line drawing. These are waterproof, so I'm going to be able to wash over the top of them and they're not going to move. But you have a slightly more subtle way of looking at it. Okay, so here is here's the light grey. Now, to me, that looks almost identical to pencil, doesn't it? But it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to stay put because it's waterproof, and I'm going to be able to see it very clearly underneath my watercolor washes. So that's the light grey. Here is the dark grey. So just a kind of another step up in depth of colour. And then let's go for the black, and you'll see straight away the kind of difference between all of them and how tonally they kind of link incrementally. So if you want to, if you've done a lot of line work or you like kind of pen and wash, or you like this style of illustration, then it might be worth considering getting yourself some waterproof pens in other shades or other tonal values so that you've got a little bit more scope, right? So coming back to my composition, I need to think about where I'm going to use these and how they can be put to best use, all right? I need to think about the various elements that I've got, what I need to come forward, what I need to push back, all of those types of things. There is as well an argument for, let's get this photograph back in that I took of the oregano. There is an argument to say where you've got a brown tint that kind of comes into the oregano, you could argue that you could use a brown pen to do it, and that's absolutely perfectly valid argument. I'm just not a big fan of using brown unless my subject is brown. I know that sounds bonkers, but if I was drawing a brown fluffy dog or one of my brown chickens or something like that, then yes, I would probably use a brown pen. But the brown on these petals is subtle, very, very subtle. And so I think I can do a better job of that with adding a little bit of the right colour watercolour than necessarily going around the outline of a green leaf, that kind of thing. So you kind of have to find the line where you want to create, not create, all of those types of things, and say to yourself, that's where that line is going to be. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm happy to create. I know, Joy, you're saying you're asking me to zoom in a bit more, but my camera is such that if I zoom in anymore, it will go out of focus. So sorry about that. This is as close as I dare get it without it all going a bit distorted where we do the broadcast. And good morning, Cheryl. Lovely to have you here. So we have these elements, don't we? We have our background oregano leaves. We have this one little spike of oregano, which I was saying in last week's broadcast, I would like to come forward of the others a little bit more. We have the banner itself, the background for our text. We have the word and we have the bee. So we've got these kind of multiple layers going on. Now, if I use the black for anything that's in the background, is going to be way too dominant. You could argue that if I use the black for the banner, that will make it stand out. but I've also got the bee to consider as well, which is going to obviously be black and yellow. So I've got to kind of think about that balance between all of those things rather than rushing headlong in, just sort of grabbing a pen and rushing in headlong. I've got to think a little bit carefully about what I want to do. Now, the best thing to do, if you do have these three colours of pen, one of the things you can do is to err on the side of caution all the time. So if you're not particularly sure about something, then do it in one of the paler colours, because you could always do it in one of the darker colours later. Do you understand what I mean? So if you're not quite sure, then you could do it in something pale, paint it all in, then look at it and think, wow, that really doesn't stand out as I would like it to. And then you could go over later. You don't need to abandon these the minute that you get colour on. So what I thought I would do is I would show you a little bit of inking in, and then what I will do is get it finished before next week's broadcast, and we will start the colour. So let's start. I know I shouldn't really start with the bee, with the most exciting bit. I should do all of the kind of the more intricate parts first, but I really want to do this bee. And like I said, I don't want the wings to be done in black because I want them to be a little bit more subtle than that, but I probably do want the body and the legs to be done like that. So let's take the light grey in this pen and let's start outlining now. Those of you who follow my work on a regular basis will be going, hang on a minute, Ali. You always say to us that we should draw in a Morse code fashion, so that we should be creating with a series of dots and dashes. So how come you're not doing that now? And that is a very, very good question. The answer is that this is not a hyper-realistic painting. This is not a naturalistic painting. We're not after that kind of impressionistic flora and fauna. This is an illustration. Oh, excuse me. And so because it's an illustration, I can afford to be a little bit more bold with my lines so that when I come to paint it in, it is more accurate, okay? So I've done the pale grey for the wings. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to do my bee's body. Now this is where I find it spectacularly difficult to not do the dot and dash when I'm kind of creating a bit of a fuzzy edge, but we'll get there. And I did this straight across, which was a bit stupid. I really need to sort of put this in on a curve to show that my bee has a curved shaped body. And then we've got that head section in. And then, I don't know what that line is, but let's make it a fuzzy line. And then we'll do another one down in here. So really tiny marks I'm making. Let's put, you can see I'm thinking. It's really hard to think and talk at the same time. Let's put that line in there. And then let's go a little bit crazy and we'll put the bottom of our bee in the pale grey. Why am I doing that? Because I might want to do either a white-tailed bumblebee or a buff-tailed bumblebee. And then if I decide to do that, then if I put black on the end of it, it's going to be way too harsh. Oh, I'm getting all specific this morning. And then let's put those legs in, which I'm going to do with a tiny little seesawing motion backwards and forwards. Mip, 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 like that. So our bee has some legs. Where's that leg? Oh, I don't think that one's long enough. Let's bring that up. So you can see, can't you? Much more considered, much more careful than it would be, see what I did there, if I was doing something more naturalistic, where I'm kind of throwing the paint at the paper, doing my normal style of painting. So there's my bee. Quite pleased with that. Now I can't rub any of those pencil lines out yet because that pen is not dry. Val is asking a very valid question. Only having black Unipin, would Posca silvers do for greys? Yes, absolutely, Val. So Posca is a paint marker. as opposed to a fine liner, so it will be a little bit more liquid. You'll just need to get it under control ever so slightly when you do it, and make sure that you've got a fine enough nib for those. But that's a really good question. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to do the banner in the what is called dark grey, but our sort of mid-tone. Why am I doing it in that? I don't want to do it in black because I don't want it to stand out too much. And I don't want to do it in light grey because I don't want it to disappear. So I'm going to put the banner sections in this colour. And if I don't think it's bold enough, then what I will do is I will go back over it with something else when I've painted it in. But there's the ends of that banner. Let's put the main section in there. Oh, that's gone a bit skew whiff. Never mind. Not the end of the world. Gives it a slightly more rustic look, doesn't it? When you've got a bit of a dip in the line. We'll sort that out later. And for the time being, I am going to put the lettering in the pale grey. Why am I putting the lettering in the pale grey? Because I don't know what I want to do with this lettering yet. I don't know whether this banner is going to be a bright colour or a dark colour, strong colour, pale colour. I have not got a clue. So I'm putting it in pale. Then what will happen is that I will be able to re-ink it, redraw it, all of those types of things. Now this is where talking and lettering become quite the challenge. So if my speech slows down as I'm doing this, there's nothing wrong with Facebook. It is simply because I am struggling to do a line and speak at the same time. Just in case you fancy making things a challenge for yourself, then try it. Try talking to somebody and doing some hand lettering at the same time. It is enough to send you slightly bonkers. So where have we got to? We got to the A. Let's put that curve in. Whoo, nearly there, Ali. Let's put the main stem of that A in. Now, where's this going? This is going up and over into that. Don't rush it, Ali. Don't rush it now. And then into that O, which is going to disappear off into the B. Oh, done. That was stressful. Okay, now the main stem of our oregano I'm going to do in the dark grey so that it stands out over the others when I put them in, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to do those others in the pale grey. So let's get that in. Lots of other people on the live broadcast also saying phew. Yeah, that was a stressful moment, wasn't it? So let's get that in. It's a bit of a dodgy space in that line. Let's join that up. Let's get this last one up here in. So coming around and about. I have to say, another reason why I chose this Agave paper for this project was because I know from experience that the pens just glide over the top of it. It's a really lovely feeling when you get a combination of pen and paper where it helps you to create a really beautiful line. Doesn't half make a difference. Now, where are we with this? We're going up and over here and down in here and down in here, and then we've got that leaf that's at the back that's an addition. What's going on here? We've got the one at the front, which has got a slight kind of curve in it, coming all the way down to the bottom, in and around that way. We've got this stem which goes behind our lettering banner down to the bottom, and then I sort of hid the end of it behind one of the other bits of oregano. Right, let's step away from the others and let's go in with the grey pen. Oh, excuse me. Now, I'm not going to make you sit there while I ink all of these leaves in. This will be the thing that I do to prep for next week's broadcast. And next week's broadcast is going to be all about choosing the colours for the project, finding that fantastic kind of happy medium between colours that are going to enhance our subject matter, colours that I want to use to make it mine, to kind of take a little bit of ownership, and some stylistic considerations in terms of colours that I use often in my work, such as violets and blues and greens, that kind of thing. And testing out all of those theories on a piece of paper to see which combinations we come up with. So that's what we're going to be doing on next week's broadcast. And I will do just this last little section here. I won't make you sit through me inking all of it in. So if you are watching live, this is your last opportunity to get any questions in to the group or to myself before I sign off for this week. Don't disappear, because I do have some information for you before we finish the broadcast, just to remind you where you can find some of these resources. Let's finish off that one, and yeah, I'll do all the rest in preparation for next week. Now let's just talk very briefly about why you might want to leave this before erasing your pencil lines. I can see here and there, particularly where I had a little bit of a wavy moment, that my pencil lines still dominate it. Why shouldn't I leave my pencil lines on? Why is that such a big deal? It's a big deal because when you paint watercolor over the top of graphite, it seals the graphite in and then you can't erase it. So when you've done an inking in like this, it would be a good idea, wouldn't it, to go back in with your putty eraser and pick off all the graphite so that you've got some nice clean lines. Why am I not doing it now? I'm not doing it now because whilst I'm pretty trustful of these pens, I know that they do the job, I know that they go on, and I know that they're waterproof. They might be dry on the surface, but they won't be dry in the core of them. The ink, if you think about it logically, penetrates the fibres of that paper. I don't want to go back in with an eraser and start smudging pen that is waterproof that I'm then going to really struggle to cover up. So if you want the quick version, then you waft a heat source at it. So that might be your heat gun or your hairdryer or something else. Or you do what I'm going to do, which is to be terribly, terribly patient and to let that ink really dry and really cure before I go back in and rub any pencil lines up. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to put a rectangular border on this too, but I need to measure it to make sure that it is straight. I have a feeling that my oregano label is slightly skew whiff anyway, but you know what, we'll think about those things in the week. We won't worry about stuff like that now. So just a last few huzzas and hurrahs to everybody who is watching live. Thank you very much, even if you're tuning in late or on catch up. Fran, good morning. Lynn, good morning. Chris is saying advice on pen colour is brilliant and really helpful. Thank you, Ali. Chris, you are very welcome indeed. I hope that gives you a few more options next time you do a pen project yourself. Rabina is saying that she's enjoyed this morning and beginning to find her mojo. I'm so sorry that you've lost it, Rabina. Let me help you look for it. You know that I'm always very happy to do that. Now, where can you go to find things? Let's talk about the Learning to Paint series of things. So we have Facebook, Instagram, and the website there. So if you're watching this live, you're already on the page, which is marvellous. So that's Learning to Paint with Alison Seaboard. It is a private group. Why do I keep it as a private group? I keep it as a private group so that you are confident that you can share your artwork and only the people that I have allowed to be members of the group can see it. Learning to Paint with ACB is my Instagram. It's not the most busy of Instagram pages. When I am announcing something about some tuition, that's where that goes. And on the right hand side is the Learning to Paint website, www.learningtopaint.co.uk. That is the home of the Technique Tuesday blog. And if you want to read more about today's broadcast, that's where you need to be. If you want to find out more about me and my work as an artist, and particularly the Plan B project, then there you have the Facebook, Instagram and website for me as an artist. So you've got Alison Seaboard Artist. Please can I put out a plea that you do like and follow that page. Facebook has just changed its the way that you can do that, but just find the like or the follow or whatever works for you, because it just helps me to get more exposure. And it also means that you see posts come up more frequently. So that's on Facebook. Then in the middle, you have Aliboard Artist. And that's where I share an Instagram post almost every day, not quite every day, but almost every day, about my Plan B project. And then over there on the right-hand side, you have my Alison Seaboard website. So that's alisonseaboard.co.uk. Don't forget to put the C in it. And there you can see up in the top right-hand corner, you have the Plan B blog. So that is where, if I do anything towards my Plan B project, that's where that goes. So I hope that all makes sense, and I hope that helps you to realise where you can go and find things. Have a click about the internet. I'm all over it. You can't get rid of me quite that easily. Now let's just say some goodbyes and answer a few questions before we disappear. Lots of people saying thank you for the demo. That is my absolute pleasure. And Joe is saying always brightens Tuesday mornings. Not that you're biased at all, Joe. And Alice is saying, thank you. This has inspired me. Not done any artwork for over 6 months. Oh, Alice, then my work is done, isn't it? Do pick up a pen, have a scribble. Don't put yourself under any pressure. Just allow something to come forward, even if it's practicing some pen techniques. That is more than enough to take you through the day. So I'm really, really glad that you're enjoying this demonstration. Don't forget to join me next Tuesday where I will be pushing this project on a little bit further. I'm kind of disappear over the next few days. I've got a very important project that I'm going to start working on tomorrow and towards the end of the week. And then I'm going to take this weekend off to spend it with some lovely friends. But I will be back all guns blazing next week, I promise. So until I see you, do take lots of care of yourselves, won't you? Continue to support each other, and we will catch up very soon. Bye, lovely people. Bye.